over that. So getting ready to graduate with a few ladies up here actually in July. And it's just amazing what the Lord has done, in my life. I grew up as a believer of God. Like my mom always told me about him. We went to church every week, but I lived a double life. Like I wanted to fit in with people at school and just, I believed a lot of the lies of the enemy growing up, and I never had that firm foundation in the Lord. And it brought me down a rough patch in high school when I started to drink and use marijuana, and that's really when I just felt so guilty because I knew it was wrong, and I knew that that's not what God wanted for my life, and I knew I was disobeying Him. But instead of surrendering then, I just ran from Him, and I felt hurt for my first heartbreak my senior year. And just when I went away to college, I just started to try harder drugs and just to give up basically. And but I'm just so thankful that it was only 6 years, it was a terrible 6 years, but I know that He saved me so many times, and He rescued me from so many times where I could have died, because I just was reckless and I didn't care anymore. And it was a scary place to be because my loved ones were afraid for me, and they were praying for me the whole time, and just, I couldn't help myself anymore. I knew that I needed the Lord. I just didn't know that He could hear me. It wasn't real to me in my heart, and so a year ago in May, I found out I was pregnant, and I had a kidney infection, and it's really when I hit my bottom, because I didn't know who the dad was. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt really ashamed, and I thought that my parents would disown me. I just felt terrible. But my mom, my mom and dad stood by me, and they were praying with me in the hospital, and just they were looking into this program, and God He closed every door to other teen challenges. It took me about 2 months to actually come here because I didn't really want to devote to a year, but I'm just so thankful He did. I ended up having a miscarriage, unfortunately, but I know that God's will, now it's His will that I want for my life, and I know He's got me, and He's just teaching me to go to Him and through the Word, and to challenge the thoughts and the lies of the enemy, because He doesn't have any place in my life anymore, and I'm a child of God, and I'm just so blessed to be here. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. Amen.
Hi everybody, I'm Danielle, I'm 24. Growing up, I didn't have a relationship with God. I never even knew about God, actually. Wasn't raised in church, wasn't raised in a Christian family. So I learned how to do things on my own, and I wore a mask throughout my life. I pretended to be something on the outside, and on the inside I was really falling apart, and I just was trying to cope with that in the wrong way, so I landed deep in heroin and meth addiction. And upon leaving my addiction, I was just doing whatever I could to support my habit, and I landed in jail. And it was when I was in jail when I had lost my car, I had lost my house, my boyfriend had died, and I was just really at the bottom. And I remember sitting in that jail cell just crying out to God. I was like, God, I know that I don't know You, but I know there has to be another way. I know this isn't the way I was created to be. And He put it in my heart to go to Psalms 40. And I opened my Bible, and it read, I waited patiently for the Lord, and He inclined to me. He brought me up out of the pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon rock and established my going. And I didn't know how true that would be, but He really did open the door immediately to come to Teen Challenge. And He's transforming me every day, because secular rehabs, they didn't work. And being here at Teen Challenge, we're creating into a new creation, and not to the person that we were, like secular rehabs would teach you to be. And this past year, I lost 11 friends, and I'm just so glad that God had His hand over my life, and that I have a plan for my future, and I'm just so thankful for all the things He's doing in my life, and just that I can have a future and a hope today. And He's just so good, and He's so faithful. And every crutch that I used to have, those have been removed because now I just rely on Him. And I know I can trust Him, and He will never abandon me. He will never leave me nor forsake me. And I'm just so thankful. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Hi, good morning. My name is Monique. I'm 41 and I'm from Ann Arbor. I grew up in a seemingly normal home. I had, loving parents. They did the best that they could to provide everything that they could for us. I have 3 siblings and we definitely didn't go without. And, I remember when I was growing up that I was running my life, my own life, based on fear. And I just never really fit in anywhere. And all the decisions that I made were fear-based, and I was just riddled with anxiety just at a very, very young age. And I found myself isolating and trying to stay away, but yet I wanted to be a part of everything, but I really didn't fit because I was too afraid. And, this led into my adult years, and finally, when I was in my 20s, I broke down. I had a nervous breakdown in my 20s, and I was hospitalized, and I was put on an incredibly unhealthy amount of medications that really just numbed me from the world around me and the people around me. So, the doctors thought, well, if she doesn't fear, then, she'll be okay and she'll be able to survive. And that just didn't happen. Those medications they worked for a few years, but at a certain point, they just stopped working, and I was introduced to alcohol, in my late 20s, and I really hadn't drank up until then. And when I drank, I was like, wow, liquid courage. And I didn't fear anymore. I had nothing to fear anymore. When I was 33, I was arrested for my first time, and I just kind of blew that off as like, well, this happens, DUIs, they happen. But that's not actually, it's not normal. Jail and rehabs became a very normal part of my life, and I've been to 9 secular rehabs and in and out of the hospital and in and out of jail. Most recently, I was actually right here in Montcalm County Jail, and I went in and I was completely broken. I was lost and I was scared. I did have praying parents and praying sister that I recently found out they just gave me to God and said, God, it's you. You're the one that has to take care of her, and they really just gave up on me and just gave me to God. And the chaplain at the jail here, she met with me every single Friday. She said, Monique, are you ready? And I was like, ready for what? Ready to leave? Absolutely. I'm facing 15 years. Yeah, I'm ready to go. But that wasn't the case. So, so she introduced a program of Teen Challenge to me, and without her, I wouldn't have known about this program. And I believe that God sent her in my path and, introduced this program to me. And so we brought it before the judicial system, and I definitely thought they would say no. But God had already opened the door to Teen Challenge for me, and they allowed for me to come. And so since being here, God has completely restored relationships with my families. Those that gave up on me are writing me weekly. They just really see a huge difference in my life. He's restoring a relationship with my daughter, and I think most importantly, I'm not on psychiatric medications anymore. God is my healer. He is my healer, and I don't need the medications today. I need Jesus in my relationship. Since coming here, I do have a relationship with Jesus, and rather than running to medications and another physician, I'm running to Jesus for my hope. So thank you for hearing my testimony.
Hi, my name is Elena. I'm from Renzi, and I've been in the program for 11 months. Growing up, I went to church with my grandma, but more for her and less for me. I just thought, going to church made you a good person, and, that was just it. And but my home life, it was very chaotic. I dealt with a lot of abuse and neglect growing up, and basically fending for myself at a very young age. And to this day, my family members are still in addictions, and I just came back from a past, and it seems like the longer I'm here, the worse it gets out there. But I have God, and that's all that matters to me today. And growing up, I was just searching for love in all the wrong places. Very young, I got in abusive relationships. I was experimenting with any kind of drugs I can get my hands on, and by the age of 18, I was addicted to crystal meth and heroin and crack and cocaine and everything else you could think of. So I felt really hard, and I was with an abusive man for 4 years, and he got me pregnant, and we were homeless at the time, so just on top of that, it was just a very dark place for me. But I praise God for my grandma. She just helped me get out of that situation, and at the time I thought it was the right decision, and I did get an abortion, and today God's healing me from that, and He doesn't remember my mistakes from yesterday, and I just, coming to Teen Challenge, I was super bitter and broken, and I just had no hope whatsoever. But you're greeted with love here and acceptance, and it's like a different world, really. And it's amazing because we are all broken, and we all are looking for what God can only heal. And I'm just so thankful today that I am right in God's will, and that's all I want to be. And Teen Challenges just helped me like understand God's love and mercy, and that I don't have to be ashamed of my past because I'm new today. And I'm so thankful for Teen Challenge and churches like you guys. So thank you for my testimony.
Morning, my name's Jamie. I'm 33. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I've been in the program 9 months now. I grew up in a pretty good home. I knew of God, but I did not know God personally. And there was this void, there was this missing piece in my life, my whole life. And I realize now that missing piece was God, the love of God. And I tried so hard my whole life to just manufacture on my own this very specific piece of the puzzle that needed to fit in my heart. And I used drugs, I used alcohol, I used women, I used relationships, I used whatever I could get my hands on, anything to try to, it's like when you try to put together the puzzle and you find those pieces that look like they fit, but you can see that little gap in there. And that's what I was doing my whole life, was just trying to force these pieces of the puzzle in. It was the love of God that I needed. And when I came to Teen Challenge, I was completely broken, hopeless. I was homeless, living in my car, fully addicted to crack cocaine, heroin, alcohol, anything under the sun. And when I came to Teen Challenge, I realized right away, I remember my first couple weeks, I remember him just speaking to me like, I love you so much that I sent my only son for you. And it was in that moment that I realized for the first time that I was able to receive the love of God. And when I received that love, I understood what it meant to have that love. And that my life was bought with a price. And that price was the blood of Christ. And that my life was no longer on the market anymore. And it was not for sale. And it was never going to be for sale again. And I was able to finally accept for the first time in my life that my sins have been forgiven, that life that I lived before is completely over, and that I don't ever have to live like that again. And it has been the most freeing thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And as Pastor was saying here, evangelism and just telling other people about Christ and what He can do in someone's life. And I stand here today, and I can't imagine doing anything else with my life after what He's done for me than going out and telling people what He's done for me. I lived a selfish life my entire life, and I just can't imagine taking this free gift of salvation that was given to me and not sharing it with other people. And I just feel like that's what God's calling is on my life, and I'm going to pursue that with my whole heart when I leave this program. And I'm just so thankful for what He's done in my life. So thank you for hearing my testimony.
Amen.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rayleigh. I grew up in a really good Christian home. My parents are in ministry, and I was just raised in the church from a young age, knowing what the Bible says and knowing God personally. I felt a calling on my life at a very young age. But around my teenage years, I started with small compromises, and very, very quickly I was just swept up in the world, in addiction and bad relationships and just everything the world had to offer. I wanted a part of it. And in those years, there was a lot of heartache, a lot of loss, a lot of problems with the law, and just a lot of running from God and knowing what was right, but just running from it. In my young 20s, I became a single mom, and from then I tried my hardest with my own willpower to, maintain what I needed to do to be a good mom and work hard. And, I was just constantly fighting to hide my addiction from my family and be functioning. But it was really exhausting. And I got to the point right before I came to Teen Challenge that I just couldn't do it anymore. And I just cried out to God and said, I know that you had more for me, and I ruined it, but I just wanted, please just try and fix this. I can't do this anymore. So very quickly after that, God opened the doors to Teen Challenge, made it very obvious that that's what I had to do. So I got all my affairs in order and chose to do that. And since I've been here, just everything's changing every day. God's beginning to just take things out of my heart that I've been holding on to, and quitting drugs and alcohol was the easy part. Now I'm just dealing with all the things I haven't been dealing with over the years is the hard part, and all the roots that I have to work on are just what I'm now working on day by day. You know, God's provided a place of refuge for me to work through those times, you know, surrounded by love, surrounded by His Word, just learning to each day, you know, pray and be in His Word and learn the promises. But that's so important because so many years I just listened to the devil, that the plans that God had for me that I ruined, that I walked away and I was just a waste. Now I accepted that, and so now I'm starting to hear God's promises again and stand on them. You know, Jeremiah 29:11, that He has a plan, a purpose, and a plan for my life, that He has good things for my future. And so I'm just standing on that finally, and thanks for hearing my testimony.
Hi, my name's Megan. I'm 25 and I'm from Holland, Michigan. And I grew up in a very supportive Christian home, but I never fully accepted Jesus in my heart or looked to Him for the answers or for my comfort. So that led to me relying on my own strength and looking to others to build me up in a way. And you know, I went from relationship to relationship and was brokenhearted, and I was just so lost, and I didn't have confidence in myself. I didn't like myself at all. And once I was introduced to alcohol, I pretty much took that and ran with it. And that just caused even more destruction in my life. And so many hurts and so much shame and so much guilt. I was a single mom, and I wasn't, you know, caring for my son as I should have. And I just felt so much shame by that and so much failure. And I just kept running, looking for something, searching. But, you know, I wasn't turning to the Lord. I was turning to the world. And about a year ago, I just realized this, like a year ago today, or almost today, I found out that I was pregnant again. And I was in the hospital for like alcohol poisoning and withdrawal, and I found that I was going back to jail again because I was on probation, and found out I couldn't go home and was losing temporary custody of my son, and that was way too much for me to handle. Like that was the bottom for me. I felt no way out of that. My church told me about Teen Challenge, and you know, I knew I needed something drastic. I knew I needed that. And I just felt the Lord was calling me to come to Teen Challenge. And when I came to Teen Challenge, I was very broken, very lost, very confused and scared. I just had so much pressure on me because I knew that I was pregnant. So, you know, I knew that I wanted to listen to the Lord and do His will, and I knew that this was it for me. And being at Teen Challenge, you know, watching the pastors and the staff, you know, lead by example, you know, they helped me to surrender it all to the Lord, to surrender my pregnancy to the Lord and my son to the Lord and all my mistakes and all my problems. I just laid it all at the altar, and I just gave it to Him, and, you know, asked Him to help me and to guide me and to just speak to me clearly so I knew. And He did that. He spoke to me so clearly, and, you know, He guided me to bless my baby to another family. And, you know, it wasn't really the plan that I wanted, but I knew that it was the Lord's, and so I followed that in faith. And, you know, He has blessed it so immensely. He has blessed me so immensely for following His will. He's given me peace, and He's given me comfort, and He's strengthened me through that whole process. And, you know, He blesses me because I get to see her, and I get to be involved in her life, and I still get to, you know, watch her grow. And, you know, her parents just love me. And I know that's God, because, you know, I could have easily just not been able to have a relationship with her, but God, you know, God just, He blessed me for following His will. And I know today that I can trust the Lord with all my heart. I know that that His will is the best will of my life, even when it is harder than you expect, even when it is scarier than you think, and even when you think that you can't do it, He does it. He gives you the strength, He gives you the courage, and then He just gives you comfort and peace with it. And I'm just so thankful for Teen Challenge for just showing me the way to the Lord, showing me how to live this out. And, I just want to help people get to the Lord. I just